King Leopold II of Belgium was born on April 9, 1835, and his childhood was marked by privilege and a strict upbringing. As a member of the Belgian royal family, he was the second son of King Leopold I and Queen Louise Marie. Leopold's childhood was spent within the confines of the royal court, where he received a traditional education befitting his royal status. He was taught several languages, including French, Dutch, and English, and was educated in history, literature, and military matters. However, Leopold's childhood was not without challenges. He experienced the early deaths of both of his parents, which had a significant impact on him emotionally. At the age of 9, his father, King Leopold I, passed away, and he became the heir to the Belgian throne. A few years later, at the age of 15, his mother, Queen Louise Marie, also died. Leopold's upbringing instilled in him a strong sense of duty and ambition, and as he grew older, he sought to increase his influence and power on the world stage. His desire for personal wealth and power would later lead him to pursue colonial ventures, notably in the Congo Free State, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where he would leave a controversial and troubling legacy. Overall, King Leopold II's childhood laid the foundation for his eventual rule, but it also exposed him to the challenges of loss and responsibility at an early age. These experiences would shape his character and decisions as he ascended to the throne and pursued his imperial ambitions in Africa. To do that, he hired the services of Henry Morton Stanley. Henry Morton Stanley was a Welsh-American explorer, journalist, soldier, colonial administrator, author, and politician who was famous for his exploration of Central Africa and his search for missionary and explorer David Livingstone. Born on the 28th of January 1841, Henry Morton Stanley played a crucial role in King Leopold II's quest to expand his influence in the Congo region. Born John Rowlands, he adopted the name Henry Morton Stanley as he began his career as a journalist and explorer. Stanley's expeditions and interactions with local African leaders were instrumental in laying the groundwork for King Leopold's control over the Congo Free State. But before all of that, Henry Morton Stanley first gained international fame in 1871 when he successfully located the Scottish missionary and explorer, Dr. David Livingstone. Dr. Livingstone had been exploring Central Africa and had not been heard from in several years. Stanley's famous line, "Dr. Livingstone, I presume," upon meeting him captured the public's imagination and established Stanley as a renowned explorer. Impressed by Stanley's success in finding Livingstone, King Leopold II saw an opportunity to secure a foothold in the African continent. In 1874, Leopold hired Stanley to undertake a series of expeditions to explore the Congo basin and assess its potential for colonial expansion. During his expeditions, Stanley made a series of controversial treaties with African chiefs, some of which are widely considered to have been obtained through coercion or deception. These treaties granted rights and territories to Leopold's newly established International African Association. Through these treaties, Leopold was able to claim vast areas of land in the Congo, effectively securing control over the region. Stanley's expeditions were not only about exploration, they were also focused on establishing Leopold's presence and control. He built trading stations along the Congo River, claiming them as Belgian territory. He hoisted the Belgian flag and performed symbolic ceremonies to further assert Leopold's authority. Under Leopold's directive, Stanley was tasked with constructing a railway that would connect the lower Congo River to Stanley Pool, now known as Pool Malibo, enabling access to the vast interior of the Congo. This railway would become an instrumental tool for the exploitation of the Congo's resources, particularly rubber. Stanley's expeditions and treaties laid the foundation for Leopold's subsequent rule over the Congo Free State. However, the consequences of his actions and the exploitative regime that followed would lead to immense suffering and human rights abuses inflicted upon the Congolese people. Stanley's methods and actions during his expeditions faced criticism from contemporary observers. Reports of brutal treatment of porters and the use of force to negotiate treaties raised concerns about his approach. In later years, Stanley distanced himself from Leopold's brutal rule, becoming a supporter of British imperialism and a proponent of colonial expansion in Africa. His expeditions, though celebrated for their accomplishments in exploration, are also a reminder of the complex and often troubling history of European colonialism in Africa. From 1884 to 1885 in Berlin, Germany, the European nations held a meeting called the Berlin Conference, also known as the Congo Conference. It was a significant event during the period of European imperialism in Africa. The main goal of the conference was to regulate and legitimize the scramble for Africa among European powers and to establish guidelines for the colonization and partition of the African continent. At the time, Africa was largely unexplored and possessed vast resources that European nations sought to exploit for economic gain and geopolitical advantage. This led to intense competition between colonial powers, and to prevent potential conflicts over territorial claims, Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of Germany, invited representatives from Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Ottoman Empire, Turkey, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Norway. Sweden and Norway were in a union at that time, United Kingdom, as well as the United States. Though the United States did not have any territory in Africa, it sent an observer to the conference. One crucial aspect to note is that no African leaders or representatives were present at the Berlin Conference. The decisions made during the conference were entirely in the hands of the European powers, without consideration for the wishes or interests of the African people. Some of the things discussed at the conference were to establish a set of rules and guidelines for dividing Africa among European powers. The European nations involved wanted to avoid direct conflict with each other and sought to legitimize their claims to African territories. The conference aimed to ensure free trade and navigation along major African rivers, especially the Congo River. This was a critical aspect of the conference, as it facilitated the movement of goods and raw materials within Africa and for export to Europe. The Berlin Conference marked a significant turning point in the colonization of Africa, as it formalized the carving up of the continent among European powers and set the stage for decades of colonial rule, exploitation, and oppression. The conference's legacy continues to impact Africa's political, social, and economic landscape even today, as it shaped the borders, governance structures, and deep-rooted inequalities that persist across the continent. The conference also recognized King Leopold II of Belgium's claim to the Congo Free State, an area that he controlled and exploited for economic gain. Leopold's brutal rule over the Congo resulted in severe human rights abuses and exploitation of the local population. King Leopold II then convinced the European powers that his intentions in the Congo were purely humanitarian. King Leopold, as the ruler of the Congo Free State, a private personal colony he controlled rather than a colonial possession of Belgium, aimed to secure recognition for his territorial claims over a large part of Central Africa, which he acquired through deceit and manipulation. To promote his interests, King Leopold presented himself as a philanthropist and painted his colonization efforts as a noble mission to abolish slavery and bring civilization and humanitarian aid to the African continent. He claimed that the Congo Free State was established to promote free trade, suppress the Arab slave trade, and introduce Christianity and European values to the people of the Congo. King Leopold also founded organizations and societies that advocated for humanitarian causes, which he used to generate public support and credibility for his actions. Additionally, Leopold employed skilled diplomats and propagandists to shape the narrative about his intentions in the Congo. These agents spread positive stories about the supposed benefits of Belgian rule, emphasizing infrastructure development, improved healthcare, and educational opportunities for the Congolese people. Regrettably, King Leopold's portrayal of his colonial ambitions as purely humanitarian was far from the truth. Behind the facade of philanthropy, the reality was much darker. Under his rule, the Congo Free State became a site of horrific exploitation, forced labor, rape, murder, and widespread human rights abuses. King Leopold's regime ruthlessly exploited the region's natural resources, such as rubber and ivory, subjecting the Congolese population to severe and inhumane labor conditions, leading to significant loss of life and suffering. Amputating the hands of the locals when the rubber quota was not met was a prevalent colonial practice, serving a dual purpose in instilling a culture of terror among the local population. The ruthless enforcement of such punishment not only aimed to punish those who failed to meet the required rubber production targets, but also sought to create an atmosphere of fear and submission to maintain control over the oppressed communities. One junior European officer described a raid to punish a village that had protested. The European officer in command ordered us to cut off the heads of the men and hang them on the village palisades, and to hang the women and the children on the palisade in the form of a cross. After seeing a Congolese person killed for the first time, a Danish missionary wrote, "The soldier said, 'Don't take this to heart so much. They kill us if we don't bring the rubber. The commissioner has promised us if we have plenty of hands, he will shorten our service," he said. Rubber revenue went directly to King Leopold II, who paid the Free State for the high costs of exploitation. Because of the human rights abuses suffered under King Leopold II's rule, Congo rubber was eventually nicknamed red rubber, in reference to the blood of the Africans killed during production. By the final decade of the 19th century, John Boyd Dunlop's 1887 invention of inflatable rubber bicycle tubes and the growing popularity of the automobile dramatically increased global demand for rubber. To monopolize the resources of the entire Congo Free State, Leopold issued 3 decrees in 1891 and 1892 that reduced the native population to serfs. These forced the natives to deliver all ivory and rubber, harvested or found, to state officers, thus nearly completing Leopold's monopoly of the ivory and rubber trade. The Congo rubber, genus Landolphia, came from wild vines in the jungle, which cannot be cultivated, unlike the rubber from Brazil, Hevea brasiliensis, which was tapped from trees and could be cultivated. The intense drive to collect latex from these wild plants was responsible for many of the atrocities committed under the Congo Free State. To extract the rubber, instead of tapping the vines, the Congolese workers slashed them and lathered their bodies with the ensuing latex. When the latex hardened, it was painfully scraped off the skin, taking the hair with it. Leopold ran up high debts with his Congo investments before the beginning of the worldwide rubber boom in the 1890s. Prices increased throughout the decade as industries discovered new uses for rubber in tires, hoses, tubing, insulation for telegraph and telephone cables, and wiring. By the late 1890s, wild rubber had far surpassed ivory as the main source of revenue from the Congo Free State. The peak year was 1903, with rubber fetching the highest price and concessionary companies raking in the highest profits. However, the boom sparked efforts to find lower-cost producers. Congolese concessionary companies faced competition from rubber cultivation in Southeast Asia and Latin America. As plantations were started in other tropical areas, mostly under the ownership of rival British firms, world rubber prices started to dip. Competition heightened the drive to exploit forced labor in the Congo to lower production costs. Meanwhile, the cost of enforcement and the increasingly unsustainable harvesting methods ate away at profit margins. As competition from other areas of rubber cultivation mounted, Leopold's private rule was left increasingly vulnerable to international scrutiny. It wasn't until the early 20th century, after widespread reports of atrocities and pressure from international activists, that the Belgian government took over the administration of the Congo from King Leopold and ended his direct rule. But the Congo would continue to face a troubled history as a Belgian colony until it gained independence in 1960. The Berlin Conference had severe and lasting consequences for Africa. The arbitrary borders drawn during the conference disregarded the region's ethnic, cultural and historical realities, setting the stage for future conflicts and challenges that continue to impact the continent to this day.